Hello, and welcome to the Jans Report. My name is Austin. Today, I want to talk about the pros and cons of nuclear energy, as well as the drawbacks of other types of green energy. Currently, around the globe, nations are scrambling to find a way to lessen greenhouse gas emissions from sources like the burning of coal and release of gas into the atmosphere. Canada, for example, wants to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 and introduce the Net Zero Accountability Act as a framework plan. Canada also laid out what green energy it was going to invest into, focusing on hydro and geothermal plants, but did not talk about nuclear energy. Nuclear energy produces zero carbon emissions, which is currently contributing to global warming. The second reason to consider nuclear energy is that it can produce energy when we need it and is not limited to what the weather is doing outside. For example, solar power is not so efficient when the sun is hidden behind the clouds, or a strong storm front that happens to blow in, and is also less effective when night comes, as the sun is not present for the panel to store energy from the light. Nuclear energy does not come without some risks, one of them being radiation, which could cause catastrophic environmental damage. An example of this is the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, which occurred on April 26, 1986, and would completely radiate the town of Pripyat, which was built close to the plant for ease of access for the workers that worked there. Other examples of nuclear disasters include the Fukushima plant in Japan in 2011, where a natural disaster sent the plant into a nuclear meltdown, releasing radiation around the plant and into the atmosphere. These disasters with nuclear power plants experiencing meltdowns has made some governments reluctant to pursue gaining energy from nuclear power. This, however, did not stop France from building nuclear power plants. In fact, 70% of its energy is produced by nuclear power. Why have some nations decided to not look at funding the construction of nuclear reactors? I think this is also one of the downsides of building nuclear power plants, is the cost to actually maintain the plant. However, there are two sides to this argument. According to Atomic Insight's, nuclear plants are relatively cheap to maintain, and that the plants refuel every 19 to 24 months and are not subject to fuel price volatility like a gas or oil plant. The other benefit is that they have a long service life and do not need to be replaced as often as other green sources of energy. Nuclear plants do cost a lot to build initially, but operating costs are generally low. The arguments against nuclear energy are a few things. One of them being the environmental impact of uranium mining, a key source to generating nuclear electricity. The other concern is the lack of suitable locations to build a nuclear plant. To back up the claim of the lack of space to build nuclear reactors is that a lot of them need to be placed near a source of water in order to keep the reactors from suffering a meltdown. This could pose a problem with unpredictable weather occurring across the globe, along with potential risks of flooding if the plant is located next to a river. Depending on whether or not you're for or against nuclear power, it is clear that developing it has some environmental risk to it. Governments have to decide if nuclear power is going to be a good alternative, if the risks it brings are worth the consequences. Before I go, here's today's funny picture. Can I get a extra large pizza? If you like the content on this channel, consider hitting the subscribe button to be notified when new content is uploaded. Also, consider checking out the dangers of AI. And I will see you all on the next Jan's Report.